As promised in one of my previous videos, this will be a video on my persimmon trees from which I've been harvesting fruit off of since early October. And as you can see, there's still a bit of fruit left to be picked. I have 3 varieties. That's a Coffeecake in the front. This one still has a little fruit left on it, but the majority has already been harvested. This other one here on the back right, that's a chocolate persimmon, and all the fruit is gone off of that one. And this one over here in the back left is a Fuyu persimmon, and this one was the last one to flower, and as you can see, it still has quite a bit of fruit on it. I'll show you the flower to harvest on all of these and talk a little bit about the taste on each of them. These trees were planted last year, and this is their first harvest after planting. The first to bloom was this one here in front. This is a Coffeecake persimmon. It also produced the most fruit, which wound up being about 45. It started to flower in late April. Here's what it looked like back in April when some of the flowers started to bloom. As you can see, it produced a good amount of flower buds. Just about every branch had a really good amount of flower buds developing. But like I said, only 45 of these wound up setting fruit. By early June, a good amount of fruit had set. At this stage, the majority of the developing fruit were about the size of a small radish. Here it is about a month later. The persimmons have put on a little more size. They're also starting to change in color from green to a light shade of yellow. By early August, more fruit had changed in color, and a few were close to reaching full size. A few days later, I found a persimmon that had fallen off. I'm not sure if it fell off on its own or due to some high winds that had come through our area. It was bright orange in color and was slightly firm to the touch. It looked ripe, but I allowed it to sit on the counter for a day and then decided to try it. After cutting it open, I saw that it had good color. From research I've done, this variety requires cross-pollination in order to develop a rich, sweet flavor. You'll know that it's been cross-pollinated if the flesh is brown in color when ripe. And as you can see, this one was a bright orange color. The taste was sweet, but I did notice a slight astringent aftertaste. I've read that this variety, if not cross-pollinated, if you wait until it's soft and jelly-like, it will lose the astringent taste and will sweeten further. Since this one didn't have that brown color on the inside, it was pretty clear that it was not properly cross-pollinated. The following month, in early September, I checked them again. By this time, the majority had reached full size and were orange in color. They were still firm and did not appear quite ready for harvest. This branch was weighed down with all the fruit it had on it. I thought it might snap the branch, so I added a post and tied the branch for added support. In November, I decided to try another persimmon. It was good size and slightly soft to the touch, but it too was not ripe and still had an astringent aftertaste. In late November, I harvested several persimmons. Some were still on the tree and a few were on the ground that had fallen off on their own. And these were all soft to the touch with a jelly-like texture. I allowed them to ripen on the counter for a few days before trying them. By this time they had turned even softer. The flavor off of these was excellent. They were all sweet with no astringent taste whatsoever. If you look towards the bottom, the persimmon in this pick, you'll see that there's a slightly brown color towards the bottom. I'm hoping next season these will get properly cross-pollinated and the flavor will be even better. This next tree here is my chocolate persimmon. This one started to develop flower buds in early April and began to bloom towards the end of April. Although it developed a large amount of flower buds, the majority wound up drying and falling off. By September, only 6 had managed to set. In late October, I tried the first persimmon. I didn't actually pick it off the tree. It was one that I found on the ground. It was very soft to the touch. You'll also notice that the shape on this one is different than the Coffeecake. This one is more oblong as opposed to the Coffeecake that's flat, roundish type of fruit. After cutting it open, I saw that the inside flesh was mostly orange with a hint of brown in a small section. The flavor, though, was excellent. As with the Coffeecake, this variety develops best when cross-pollinated. A good way to tell if this variety has been pollinated is by the color of the inside flesh. If it turns a dark brown color inside, it means that you've had a successful cross-pollination. I don't think this one was properly pollinated, but the flavor was sweet and no astringent taste to it whatsoever. In early December, I tried another one that I had previously picked and had allowed to ripen on the counter for a few days. This one was notably more brown both on the inside as well as the outside. The flavor was sweet and I found the seed in it. The previous ones I had picked off this tree did not contain any seeds. I believe that this persimmon was cross-pollinated, which accounted for the darker color and likely why this one contained the seed, while the others that had not been properly cross-pollinated did not have any seeds, and the color was not quite as dark as brown as this one. And lastly is my Fuyu persimmon. This one was the last to bloom. It was about a couple of weeks behind the others, and It also managed to produce a good amount of flower buds. Here it is in June. The fruit is at the very early stages of development. And here it is in mid-July. The fruit here is a little bigger and still completely green in color. By early August, some of the fruit was just starting to change color. Here it is in September. You can see the fruit is still not ready. Still has yellow and a lot of green in it. Hasn't changed colors like the others. It wasn't until December that I was able to pick the first Fuyu persimmon. After picking it, I allowed it to ripen further on the counter for a couple of days. The color was bright orange and it was still firm to the touch. After cutting it open, I was surprised to find a seed. Several years ago, I had harvested fruit off of a Fuyu persimmon, and if memory serves me right, it did not have any seeds. I'm guessing that the other two persimmon varieties may have cross-pollinated and caused the Fuyu to seed. Anyway, other than the seeds, it didn't seem to have an effect on the taste. It was sweet and excellent in flavor. So to recap, these varieties took about 5 to 6 months to go from flower to harvest. The Coffeecake persimmon was the one that took the least amount of time. It started to flower in late April, and the first fruit was picked in mid-September. So that was just over 5 months. It was also the one that produced the most. In all, there were a total of about 45 persimmons that wound up setting. The chocolate was the next that followed. It was the one that produced the least amount of fruit. Only 6 managed to set. The flowers on this one started to bloom in late April, and the first fruit was picked in late October. So this one was closer to 6 months. And last was the Fuyu persimmon. This one was the last to bloom, and it took the longest to fruit. It began to flower end of April, early May, and the first fruit was not picked until the end of November, which was well over 6 months. A total of about 12 managed to reach maturity. As for the taste, I'd have to say that the Fuyu was my favorite, although I don't think this was a fair comparison. Both the chocolate and Coffeecake persimmons require cross-pollination, and I really don't think that either was properly pollinated. All three had excellent flavor, but the Coffeecake and the chocolate persimmons had to be allowed to turn very soft with a jelly-like consistency in order to get rid of that astringent taste. The Fuyu, on the other hand, had excellent flavor, or after picking off the tree, even though it was still firm. I'd also like to point out that this was the very first harvest off these trees. Hopefully as the trees mature, the flavor will improve. And one more point I'd like to make is that I'm in zone 10A, and we get mild coastal weather here and not as much sun as some of the other places. I'm sure if you go further inland, fruit off of these varieties will ripen much quicker. Well, that will be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If so, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay safe, grow your own, and thank you for watching.